بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الدرس الأول: حروف الهجاء المفردة. ألف، باء، تاء، ثاء، جيم، حاء، خاء، دال، ذال، راء، زا، سين، شين، صاد، ضاد، طاء، ظاء، عين، غين، فاء، قاف، كاف، لام، ميم، نون، واو، ها، همزة، يا.
That method, although acceptable as an aid to the student of ordinary modern Arabic, does not give the accuracy required for tajweed. As a supplement to audio-vocal training, tajweed studies include both pinpointing the makharaj, the point of articulation of each letter, whose plural is makharij, and defining certain qualities or characteristics called sifat of each letter, which distinguish it from other sounds. Makharij. In the human body, the area of speech is divided into 5 main sections. Al-Jawf, the interior or chest area. Al-Halq, the throat. Al-Lisan, the tongue. Al-Shafatan, the 2 lips. Al-Khayshum, the nasal passage. These are further subdivided into a total of 17 subsections, which are the actual points of articulation. They are as follows, along with the letters which are formed in each makhraj. The interior is 1 makhraj for 3 letters.
Al-Jawf.
The interior is 1 makhraj in itself and includes the empty area of the open mouth. From it emerge the vowel sounds of alif, pronounced a, waw, pronounced oo, and ya, pronounced e. This makhraj is an estimated or approximate one, taqdiri, while all others are true or actual, haqiqi, because they apply to consonant sounds and can be pinpointed more accurately. The throat section contains 3 makharij for 6 letters.
أقصى الحلق.
The deepest part of the throat is the makhraj of hamza, a glottal stop, pronounced in English at the beginning of words that start with vowels, such as ate, eat, out. It is a true written consonant in Arabic and must be pronounced clearly whether it occurs at the beginning, middle, or end of a word. From this section of the throat also, but slightly higher, emerges ha.
وسط الحلق.
The mid-throat is the makhraj of ayn, and just above it, ha, a sharper ha sound than ha.
أدنى الحلق.
The nearest part of the throat to the mouth is the makhraj of ghayn, followed by kha. The tongue contains 10 makharij for 18 letters.
أقصى اللسان مما يلي الحلق.
The innermost part of the tongue, next to the throat, along with what corresponds, that is its opposite to it, from the roof of the mouth. This is the makhraj of qaf.
أقصى اللسان مما يلي الفم.
The innermost part of the tongue toward the mouth, and what corresponds from the roof of the mouth, is the makhraj of kaf.
وسط اللسان.
The middle of the tongue, the upper surface,
ظهر اللسان.
with what corresponds from the roof of the mouth, is the makhraj of jim, sheen, and ya when it begins a syllable as the consonant ya.
حافة اللسان أو حافتاه.
One or both edges of the tongue, along with the upper back molars, more often on the left side, is the makhraj of dad.
حافة اللسان.
Between the edge of the tongue, usually the right side, and the gums of the upper front molars, canine teeth, and incisors is the makhraj of lam.
رأس اللسان.
Between the tip of the tongue and the gums of the two upper central incisors is the makhraj of noon.
رأس اللسان مما يلي ظهره.
Between the upper part of the tip of the tongue and the gums of the two upper central incisors emerges the letter ra.
رأس اللسان مع ظهره.
Between the tip, including a portion of the upper surface of the tongue, and the roots of the two upper central incisors is the makhraj of ta, dal, and ta.
رأس اللسان مع قريب من الثنايا.
The tip of the tongue, near the inner plates of the upper central incisors, is the makhraj of sad, sin, and zay.
ظهر اللسان مما يلي رأسه.
Between the upper surface of the tongue near the end and the tips of the two upper central incisors is the makhraj of dha, dhal, and tha. From the lips come four letters.
بين الشفتين.
Between the two lips is the makhraj of ba, mim, and waw when it begins a syllable as the consonant wa.
بطن الشفة السفلى.
Between the inside of the lower lip and the tips of the upper incisors is the makhraj of fa. The nasal passage.
الخيشوم.
The nasal passage, which like the interior is a single makhraj, is the makhraj of al-ghunna. Al-ghunna is not a letter, but a quality belonging to the letters noon and mim, a sound coming from the nose, in which the tongue has no part. It is said to resemble the voice of a female gazelle if her child is lost. It will be dealt with further in sections on noon and mim. In order to feel the makhraj of a given letter, pronounce that letter with sukoon preceded by hamza. For example, for the makhraj of qaf, say
أق.
For the makhraj of sad, say
أص.
For the makhraj of ha, say
أح.
An instructor should help if any adjustment of the makhraj is necessary. As-sifat. The second study pertaining to pronunciation is that of sifat. Its singular is sifa, meaning description, characteristic, attribute, or quality. Here, the word sifat, or sifa, refers to the special characteristics or qualities found in each letter. The purpose of defining sifat is first to make sure they are present during pronunciation, and second, to differentiate between letters whose origin is in the same makhraj, such as ta and ta, dhal and dha, or sin and sad. When a letter emerges from the correct makhraj and all its sifat are observed, then accurate pronunciation is obtained. Sifat are of two types: permanent, known as as-sifat al-lazima, and temporary, called as-sifat al-aridah. The latter will be described under the sections dealing with the rules of tajweed. Permanent qualities, however, are those inherent in the letter, without which correct pronunciation will not be realized. Most scholars give their number as 17, 10 opposite to each other, that is 5 pairs, and 7 singles with no opposites. Every letter has at least 5 sifat, that is, 1 from each pair of opposites, and may have an additional single quality as well, with the letter ra having 2 additional single qualities. The following is a list of the permanent qualities, as-sifat al-lazima, and the letters which carry them. Opposite sifat. Al-hams, whispering, a flow of breath during pronunciation. a quality of the letters contained in the phrase
فحثه شخص سكت.
al-jahr, audibility, trapping the flow of breath due to a heavy dependence on the makharaj, a quality of all other letters not included under whispering. Ash-shiddah, strength or force, trapping the flow of sound in the makharaj, a quality of the letters in the phrase
أجد قط بكت.
al-rakhawa, weakness or looseness, a flow of sound during pronunciation. Between the two opposites of strength and weakness falls a third quality, moderation, at-tawassut, where the sound emerges but does not flow. The letters of moderation are lam, noon, ayn, mim, ra, and those of weakness are all of the letters not included under the categories of strength and moderation. Al-isti'la, elevation, raising the tongue to the roof of the mouth during the emergence of the letter. This quality belongs to the letters in the following phrase.
خص ضغط قض.
Al-istifal, lowness, lowering the tongue to the floor of the mouth. It includes all letters other than those of elevation. Al-itbaq, closing, the meeting of the tongue and what is opposite it from the roof of the mouth. Its letters are four: Sad, Dad, Ta, and Dha. Al-infitah, opening, the separation of the tongue from the roof of the mouth. It includes all letters other than Sad, Dad, Ta, and Dha. A final pair is not included in tajweed study, but is mentioned only for the sake of completing the descriptive qualities. It is al-idlaq, fluency, the easy flowing of the letters fa, ra, mim, noon, lam, ba, as in the phrase
فر من لب.
from the tip of the tongue and the lips. And al-ismat, restraint, the emergence of the remaining letters from inside the mouth and throat. Sifat without opposites. As-safir, whistling, a sound emerging between the tip of the tongue and the upper central incisors, which resembles the sound of a bird. It is a quality of the letters Sad, Sin, and Zay. With Zay, it is more like a buzzing sound. Al-qalqala, vibration or unrest. The vibration of the makhraj with the emergence of the letter when accompanied by sukoon, a breaking of tension or release. Its letters are five: Qaf, Ta, Ba, Jim, Dal. In the phrase
قطب جد.
this quality will be discussed further in another section. Al-lin, ease or softness, pronunciation without exertion or difficulty. This is a quality of waw with sukoon preceded by fatha, and ya with sukoon preceded by fatha. These are not to be confused with the vowel sounds of u and e, which will be discussed under the section of med. Al-inhiraf, inclination, the inclination of the letter after its emergence from the makhraj toward another makhraj. This is a characteristic of lam and ra. Lam inclines toward the tip of the tongue, and ra inclines back toward the makhraj of lam. At-takrir, repetition, the natural tendency to vibrate or roll the tongue when pronouncing the letter ra. Correct pronunciation, however, requires the prevention or avoidance of this quality by controlling the tongue and not relaxing it. At-tafashi, diffusion, the spreading of air throughout the mouth during pronunciation. This is a quality of sheen. Al-istitala, elongation, the extension of sound over the entire edge of the tongue from front to back. This is a quality of dad and is most noticeable when it is accompanied by a sukoon as in the words
يضرب
and.
يضحكون.
The sifat of any letter are most evident when pronouncing it with sukoon. For example, to hear the sifat of dha, say.
أض
To hear the sifat of sheen, say.
أش
To hear the sifat of ba, say.
أب.
We notice from our study of Makharej and Sifat that the letters waw and ya serve two functions. As consonants, equivalent to wa and ya, and as vowels, the sounds of oo and e. In the latter case, they are referred to as letters of med, extension or lengthening, and are always written with sukoon and preceded by a short vowel of a similar type, such as waw sakina preceded by dhamma, or ya sakina preceded by kasra, as in the word
نوحيها.
Aleph is always a vowel or med letter and is written in the same way. That is, Aleph Sakina preceded by Fatha. It never begins a word, since a syllable cannot begin except with a consonant sound. If the written form of Aleph should occur at the beginning of a word, it is in reality merely a support for Hamza, and not a letter in its own right. Hamza is also of two types. The first is a regular consonant, Hamzatul Qata, which is written either alone or with a support letter, a form which has no function in the pronunciation, either with Aleph, Waw, or Ya. This Hamza must always be pronounced. The second type is a means for connecting certain words. It is called Hamzatul Wasl, occurring only at the beginning of a word and indicated in the Mus'haf, the Arabic volume of the Quran, either by the Aleph form alone or by the symbol of Aleph with Sad above it. This Hamza is dropped when serving its connecting function during recitation and is pronounced only when beginning a new sentence or phrase, that is, after drawing a breath. Lesson 2. Preparing for recitation. As in all forms of worship, the study and recital of the Quran must be accompanied by the correct intention, seeking the acceptance and pleasure of Allah. It is preferable to be in a state of wudu, or ablution, if possible. A manner of respect and politeness should be observed before the words of Allah, the Exalted. Seeking refuge. Al-Isti'adha. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said,
فإذا قرأت القرآن فاستعذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم.
And when you recite the Quran, seek refuge in Allah from Shaitan the rejected. So anyone intending to read or recite ayat or verses from the Quran should begin by saying,
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم.
I seek refuge in Allah from Shaitan the rejected, whether starting from the beginning of a surah or from any other point. Normally, it is not said aloud except in circles of learning. If one is interrupted during reading by some necessity or speech not pertaining to Quranic study, he should repeat the seeking of refuge before resuming recitation. Pronouncing the name of Allah. Al-Basmalah. After seeking refuge from Shaitan, the reader, when beginning a new surah, says,
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Except in Surah At-Tawbah, which does not begin with the Basmalah. When starting from the middle of a surah, the reciter may choose to recite it or not as he or she pleases, except in cases where the ayah to begin with contains some description of Allah, as in the 47th ayah of Surah Fussilat, which should not be connected to the name of Shaitan. After the Basmalah, the saying of Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, whenever appropriate, the actual recitation begins. Stops. Al-Waqf. Knowing the proper places to begin and to stop during reading or recitation is of utmost importance in order to avoid mistakes leading to confusion or a change in meaning. The question often arises concerning a long ayah where the reader must pause to draw a breath before continuing. Any point of starting or stopping is considered either permissible, jaiz, prohibited, ghayru jaiz, or unsuitable, qabih, according to whether or not it leads to a complete and correct meaning. A general understanding of the meanings in Arabic can keep the reader from most serious mistakes, and additional knowledge is gained through the tafsir, or explanation of the Quran. For further assistance, certain symbols have been added by scholars to the Mus'haf, designating information about the desirability of stopping in specific places. Mushafs printed in Pakistan follow a system of symbols slightly different from those printed in Arab countries, but the more common ones in most mushafs are as follows. A small circle indicates the end of an ayah or verse. The letter mim indicates a compulsory stop to avoid altering the meaning. The letter ta signifies a normal stop at the end of a sentence or thought. The letter jim indicates that it is permissible to stop. The word sileh, sad, lam, ya, or the letter sad or the letter zay indicates a permissible stop, but a preference to continue. The word qileh, or the letter qaf by itself, indicates that it is permissible to continue, but preferable to stop. At the letter kaf, one should observe the indication of the previous symbol in the ayah. The word la, lam aleph, indicates a prohibited stop. Consecutive triangles, composed of 3 dots each, indicate that one may stop at either of these two places, but not at both. The sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ is to stop at the end of each ayah, regardless of its length. Therefore, we can disregard the la sign in some mushafs at the end of many short ayat. When stopping on any word, whether at the end of an ayah or a phrase, or merely to draw a breath, the following is observed. Short vowels, including tanween, are omitted in pronunciation from the last letter of the word. For example,
محيط
is pronounced
محيط الكافرون
becomes.
الكافرون.
One exception is the tanween of fatha, which is pronounced when stopping as aleph. When stopping on ta marbuta, all vowels and tanween, including that of fatha, are omitted, and the letter is pronounced as ha with sukoon. Pauses. A sect. Sect, or sakta, means a pause held for 2 counts, the length of a med letter, without breathing during recitation, and it is symbolized by the letter sin, or the word sakta. It should be observed in the following places in the Quran. After the word iwaja, in Surah Al-Kahf, the first ayah.
لم نجعل له عوجا قيما.
After marqadina, in Surah Yasin, the 52nd ayah.
من مرقدنا هذا.
After man, in Surah Al-Qiyamah, the 27th ayah.
وقيل من راق.
After bal, in Surah Al-Mutaffifin, the 14th ayah.
كلا بل ران على قلوبهم.
And after Maliyah, in Surah Al-Haqqah, the 28th ayah, and this is according to some scholars.
ما أغنى عني مالية هلك عني سلطانية.
These pauses are to prevent confusion about the meanings which might occur otherwise. Lesson 3. Basic Rules of Tajweed. Tafkhim and Tarqiq.
Tafkhim is defined as thickening or making heavy. That is, giving the letter a quality of heaviness by elevation of the tongue. Tarqiq is its opposite, which means thinning or lightening, giving the letter a quality of lightness by lowering the tongue away from the roof of the mouth. Letters having the quality of elevation, al-isti'la', those are the letters kha, sad, dad, ghain, ta, qaf, and dha, as in the phrase, are also called letters of tafkhim, because all of them are heavy, whether accompanied by a short vowel or a sukoon. The heaviest of them are those of closing, al-itbaq, since the tongue is then in the highest position against the roof of the mouth. Tafkhim is most emphasized in any given letter when it carries a fatha followed by alif. Next, when it carries only a fatha. Next, when it carries al-dhamma. Then sukoon, and least of all, with a kasra. Practice saying the following words and phrases.
خالدين صادقين الضالين خاطئة طاف عليهم طائف خلق صبر ضرب طفقا قدر ظهر غدقا قال القرآن الصلاة الطعام طباقا إخراج أظلم
Letters having quality of lowness, al-istifal, that is, the remaining consonants, are called letters of tarqiq, or lightness, and must always be pronounced with the tongue lowered, except for the letters lam and ra, which in certain circumstances alternate between tarqiq and tafkhim. Practice saying the following words and phrases.
التائبون العابدون الحامدون الساجدون الآمرون الناهون حمل كتب أنعمت.
The med letter or long vowel aleph takes on the quality of the letter preceding it. If heavy, the aleph is also pronounced with tafkhim, and if light, with tarqiq. Say the following.
ساجدين صادقين كان قال التائبون طائفة
And read the 35th ayah of Surah Al-Ahzab, the 1st through 14th ayat of Surah An-Nazi'at, and the 1st through 12th ayat of Surah Al-Ghashiyah. The rule of lam. Lam is normally a light letter, the only exception being when it occurs in the divine name Allah. If the divine name is preceded by a kasra, or ya sakina, the lam is pronounced with tarqiq, as in the following.
بسم الله الحمد لله في الله أعوذ بالله قل اللهم.
But if it is preceded by fatha, dhamma, or waw sakina, or the reader begins with the divine name, the lam is pronounced with tafkhim, as in the following.
قال الله قال إني عبد الله الله نور السماوات والأرض سبحانك اللهم وإذ قالوا اللهم
The rule of Ra. The letter Ra alternates between tarqiq and tafkhim according to the short vowel accompanying it, or in the case of sukun, the vowel preceding it. Therefore, Ra is light, that is with tarqiq, when it is accompanied by kasra or by sukun and preceded by kasra, as in the following.
فرح الرقاب الصابرين واصبر فرعون
It is also light when one stops on it, but is preceded by ya sakina at the end of a word, thereby omitting the final short vowel, as in the following.
قدير خبير خير
Ra is heavy, that is with tafkhim, when it is accompanied by fatha or dhamma, or by sukun, but preceded by fatha or dhamma, as in the following.
ربنا رأوا رزقنا حاضرا عشرون خردل غرفة القرآن
It is also heavy when one stops on it while it is preceded by aleph sakina or waw sakina, as in the following.
النار القهار الغفور الصدور.
And it is heavy when preceded by a connecting hamza, hamzatul wasl, in any circumstance, as in the following.
إن ارتبتم أم ارتابوا لمن ارتضى مرتقبة. اركعوا ارجعوا
And finally, it is heavy when ra itself is sakina, and although preceded by kasra, it is followed by a heavy letter carrying fatha or dhamma, as in the following.
قرطاس مرصاد.
Read for practice the 96th through 99th ayat of Surah Hud and Surah Al-Qamar. Qalqala. The quality of qalqala was briefly mentioned under the section on Sifat. In Tajweed books, it is usually treated as a separate study. Literally, qalqala means movement, shaking, or unrest. In Tajweed terminology, it means the movement or vibration of the makharaj with the pronunciation of one of the letters of qalqala when it is accompanied by a sukoon. It is caused by a sudden release of the flow of sound after its having been trapped under pressure in the makharaj, producing an additional sound which gives emphasis and clarity to the letter. The letters of qalqala are those contained in the phrase
قطب جد.
that is qaf, ta, ba, jim, dal. And it is to be noted that if one were to end a syllable on any of them without the quality of qalqala, that letter would be suffocated and not heard by the listener. The qualities of audibility and strength are combined in these letters. Qalqala is somewhat less evident when occurring in the middle of a word, such as the following.
يقتلون أطعمهم يبصرون تجعل أدراك.
This is called qalqala sughra, the lesser qalqala. Qalqala is more pronounced when occurring at the end of a word, such as the following.
الفلق محيط وقب بهيج أحد.
This is called qalqala kubra, the greater qalqala. Qalqala is most pronounced when the letter is doubled with a shadda, such as in the following.
تب الحج الحق.
For practice, read surahs Al-Buruj, Al-Tariq, Al-Adiyat, Al-Masad, and Al-Falaq. Al-Ghunna. Ghunna is a quality of noon and mim and has been mentioned under its makhraj. Ghunna emerges from the nose while the flow of sound is blocked in the mouth by the tongue in noon
and by the lips in meme. When noon or meme is doubled, as indicated by a shadda, the ghunnah is held for 2 counts, equal to the length of a long vowel, as illustrated in the words
إن
and.
ثم
Say the following.
عما يتساءلون وأنا لما سمعنا الهدى آمنا به من الجنة والناس يا أيها المزمل.
Ghunnah also occurs in other circumstances which will be dealt with under the rules for noon and meme. Lesson 4.